Hello again, and welcome back to the ADHD Friendly podcast. I'm Patty Blenderman, an ADHD coach and host of all things ADHD Friendly. This is episode 7, and in today's episode, I'm going to be highlighting the importance of self-care, and I'm going to be sharing my self-care tool, something I call a treat yourself menu. So I talked about how the holiday season is here and shared some strategies for keeping up with it in terms of budgeting and planning. Today, I'm going to highlight how important it is to prioritize self-care, particularly during this time of year, which can be much more stressful, a lot more taxing on our executive functions. So they just make it more important to have structure in place to support yourself with some self-care. So I'm going to share something that I read from the Mayo Clinic recently. And so this is a quote from that article. They say the average adult brain creates approximately 70,000 thoughts each day. Chances are your brain doesn't tell you how fantastic you look in those jeans, how brilliant your presentation was, or what an amazing parent you are. That's not how your brain is designed. Your brain is designed to seek out threat, keep you safe from danger, and protect you. And they say, as a result, your brain focuses on the negative. It seeks out what's wrong instead of what's right. It holds on to negative events and feelings more than the positive ones. And it tells you if you were just this or just that, if you could try a little bit harder, then things would be better. So the Mayo Clinic article went on to say, don't let the holidays become something you dread. Instead, take steps to prevent stress during them. That's what inspired me to share what I call a treat yourself menu, and to just share a little bit of information on how to prioritize self-care. So when you think about prioritizing your self-care, where do you fall on your list of priorities? When we're depleted, we have nothing to give. If we allow ourselves to do something that we love, it recharges our batteries. But it's easy to lose our real selves in this do, checklist, get things done mentality. Prioritizing self-care is essential. One thing that I try to remember is that we drain others if we don't get our own needs met. And I use that as a reminder to nudge myself into prioritizing self-care for myself more, if I can remember that I can't help others if I'm not helping myself. So I'm going to share a couple of tips for prioritizing self-care, and just see if when I'm sharing a few of these, if anything resonates for you, if anything feels like it would feel like a treat or a way to care for yourself. So one is to dedicate 15 minutes each day to you. 15 minutes, just carving out some time to do what would recharge your batteries. For me, it tends to be alone time. So looking for that chance to read a chapter of a book I'm reading, or have a cup of coffee with my thoughts. Stepping away from social media. Being mindful of your self-talk is a tip for prioritizing self-care. Just noticing if your self-talk is positive or if it's pulling you down and judging. Looking into how to use your strengths, things that you naturally bring forth. So if love of learning is a strength for you, looking for things that allow you to learn. Find a class, find a group, a book club, something that will let you tap into that. If kindness is one of your strengths, maybe prioritizing one small act of kindness a day would be a way to fill up your tank with a little bit more ease. We have a lot of intentions. With ADHD, with brain wiring, we often lose the thread of what we're intending to do before we do it. So one thing I'm always asking myself, and I'm prompting my clients for, is how will you remember that? So when you're thinking about prioritizing your self-care, how will you remember that that's a priority, or what you intended to do? If you identified, let's say you're going to give yourself 15 minutes, how do you remember when you decided to do that? If you picked a time or if you picked an activity, how do you remember what you decided to do during your 15 minutes that you've carved out? We're very out of sight, out of mind. So often visual prompts can support us. So I'm going to share a couple of my visual prompts that I've created to support myself as I try to make prioritizing self-care a little bit easier, a little more ADHD friendly. So one tool that I've used in the past is a spreadsheet. No surprise there if you've listened to my other podcasts. I do love a good spreadsheet. I just like the way they're laid out visually. So again, it's a visual tool. And the one that I'm going to share, again, if you're listening to this, if you want to see the visual examples that I'm sharing today, you can check out my YouTube channel, ADHD Friendly. So the spreadsheet that I'm going to share is laid out with the days of the week and times of day. And it's everything from AM activity all the way down to shower. So this was from when my kids were younger. I was always trying to see, how can I fill the time? How can I structure it so that it has some variety that is keeping my brain engaged, but it's also keeping them interested in what I had planned out. So I share activities like for example, morning activity may have been going for a walk, walking the dog, doing something physical. And then the PM activity may have been shooting basketball out in the driveway, having an obstacle course in the basement, playing croquet in the yard. And then I'd have like a backup activity in case it was raining outside, or, different weather, different circumstances. So I would have a backup, like maybe we'd make Jello or go on a treasure hunt or play fetch with the dogs or have a dance party. And then I planned dinner for the week. So again, it was set it and forget it. I didn't have to keep trying to figure out, what are we doing for dinner? What's going on? Maybe we have an after dinner activity. We used to have, we have 4 kids, so we would prioritize splitting them up so that each kid would get individual time with us. And so we would put that on the calendar and structure it out. So we'd remember who's doing what with what kid. And we could literally go back and see when was the last time either one of us had time with an individual kid. We'd also have time for chores in the evening, and we'd identify what they are and whether or not it was a bath night, shower night. So I'm just going to hold that up so you can see the overall structure of it. Again, days of the week across the top, and then down the side, the times of day, and then a variety of activities in the middle, just to keep it interesting. So that's a spreadsheet. If spreadsheets don't work for you, and I know they don't work for a lot of us, it's really just noticing what layout, what visual prompts can work. I've seen great self-care menus with little sketches, little pictures, little icons of different activities that feel like a little reward, a little care for yourself. I love that. The next tool I'm going to share is another menu. I mentioned menus on a previous podcast episode. And again, I'm not referring to a restaurant menu. I'm referring to a menu of choices, a menu of things that work for me. So this is something I call a treat yourself menu. And it's inspired from the show Parks and Recreation. If you guys are Parks and Rec fans, you might remember Tom and Donna had a treat yourself day. It was in a couple of different episodes, and I just loved it. I just thought it was the best example of self-care. In all the activities they did had to do with just treating themselves. The whole day was focused on treating themselves. And it inspired me to make a treat yourself menu. Just have different categories like connections. If I need to connect with someone, it just builds my energy. There might be food or beverage things that feel like a treat to me, movies that feel like a treat to me, outside activities, free activities, things that might cost a little bit of money, things that are quick and easy. And then one of my favorite categories is a treat, your future self treats. So things that if I did that only took a couple of minutes now, like my example is make the bed. Oh my gosh, my future self feels like that's such a treat when I go into my room and my bed's made. It's just, it's yummy. I just love little things that I can do that can give my future self a treat. So I've been playing around with adding things to that category and keep it sparkly. So again, I want to wrap back to what I said earlier. It's a way to visually remind yourself what works for you, what feels like a treat, what self-care works for you. And if you think about if you're low energy and you need a treat, you need some self-care, it's really hard to think of examples of what might work when you're running on low energy. Your tank is empty. Your brain doesn't have a lot of energy to pull from and think of things. So it actually is very difficult, if not impossible, to come up with things that would work when you are low energy, which is why starting a list of things that does work for you is so ADHD friendly, because now all you need to do is remember it exists. And then you just go grab it and you can look, and all of the things on the list work for you because you made it. So it's just an ADHD friendly tool that can continue to give back and support yourself because it allows you to prioritize yourself a little bit more easily. So this is a quote from, I don't know, it's just an unknown is the author, but the quote is, self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. I love that because we often put everything else ahead of our own self-care. We have to fill our own tanks. It's like the oxygen mask metaphor. If you don't put yours on first, you can't help anyone else. You need to support yourself first. And we do that by prioritizing our own self-care, especially in the holiday season. So that's all for this week's ADHD Friendly podcast. Once again, thank you for your time, your focus, and your attention as I shared some ADHD friendly strategies to prioritize self-care during the busy holiday season, including how to make a treat yourself menu. If you're inspired to make your own treat yourself menu, I'd love to hear your experience. So please post your experiences. Until next time, here's to your day being a little more ADHD friendly. Tally ho.